Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Sports Network's continuing coverage of the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Summer 2015 Conference here in New York City. Tony Cicada, what's up, man?
Oh, it's great to be here in New York City, man. So many people here from the fantasy sports industry. I'll tell you what, I'm surprised that we have 450 people here. It's amazing. I've been to these things before in Las Vegas, and it seemed like a couple hundred people. It's doubled.
Grown exponentially. We're going to have a ton of guests during our coverage here on the Fantasy Sports Network. Peter Shanky's going to join us. We're going to turn around. We got Scotty Angles wrangling people for us. So we're going to have some fun here, talk to everyone in the industry, anyone who wants to sit down with us. We're going to have a nice long chat.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, because you see the industry getting so big, and of course everybody knows what's going on with FanDuel and DraftKings, all the money they've raised. But what it's actually done is brought awareness to the fantasy sports industry that wasn't there with a lot of the participants. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
I don't want to understate what's going on here. We are at the forefront of history. The industry's obviously never seen this before, but you're talking about two companies that are unicorns valued at $1 billion each. Daily fantasy really is only like a few years old. It's just starting to get mainstream, and we're here it's like we're in Wyoming. There's a lot of California and everything left to discover here, and we're kind of getting it all together here at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association.
I'll tell you what, they've done such a great job, and I was talking to this with Mike Cardano, is that people don't call it daily fantasy sports. They say I play FanDuel, I play DraftKings.
Yeah.
I need a Xerox.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Give me a Coke. We got Pepsi. Well, whatever, dude, you know? Yeah, it's the same thing.
It's amazing what has happened in this industry. And then we found yearly season leagues, their production has increased, their popularity has increased, because they've brought, the daily fantasy sports industry has brought new players into the mix, and they're playing yearly leagues too.
It really is an exciting time to be part of the industry, to be observing the industry. We're going to be doing a little bit of both here. Tony Cicada, Nano DeFino, shepherding you through the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Conference. Tony, let's just set the stage for the state of fantasy right now. We're going to have some very cool guests coming our way who are really kind of experts in the industry. But just to kind of set the table, let everyone who's tuning in right now know where we're at. We got the three major season-long fantasy sites. Yahoo and ESPN, free-to-play, growing. CBS still has a pay model there. They do have a free game, but daily fantasy, FanDuel, DraftKings, at the forefront. This is a good time to be involved in fantasy sports.
It absolutely has, and one of those season-long sites you talked about, Yahoo, is going to be involved in the daily fantasy.
They're crossing over.
So they're going to be the first big one to come over and try to play with FanDuel and DraftKings. It'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, and I think it's exciting when you think about all the users they have over at yahoo.com and how they go about it. So I'm interested to see how that goes, because a lot of people think DraftKings and FanDuel have such a great head start, they can't compete, but Yahoo's got all these players at their disposal already.
You know what? Here's the question with the Yahoo transition over. Are they going to be able to get these season-long players to kind of join casual leagues at work? You know, they got their girlfriends in there. Like, is Jane from accounting going to get that alert and say, try our daily game? What do you think the rate of conversion is going to be? Like, how many people are playing Yahoo who don't already play daily fantasy?
You know, it's crazy. I think that you'd be surprised. I bet it's like 70% that have never played daily fantasy. The last time we were here, Nigel Eccles from FanDuel.com said only 5% of people that play yearly fantasy leagues are playing daily fantasy. I don't believe that to be true now. I think it's at least doubled, and maybe 15% or 20%. So there's still 80% market out there, and I'm wondering what's going to happen in fantasy football, because we have so many people. The majority of fantasy sports players only play fantasy football.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They can't stand baseball. Baseball's boring. You got to know too many players. You got to make too many changes. The dude who's up, for the waiver wire break-in at 12:01 is always the guy who gets the first player. There are so many complaints about baseball. Daily fantasy baseball right now is kind of seeing a little uptick.
You know what's crazy about this whole thing? If 5 years ago we're sitting at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association, say, hey, you know what? We're going to have $2 million fantasy golf prizes this year.
Yeah.
You'd think the guy was drunk, right? And we've got two fantasy millionaires crowned by DraftKings this year. And guess what? Another one on the way at the British Open.
Dude, here's a question for you. And we were having a chat with Drew Dinkmeyer about this yesterday at lunch. Is it better for the industry that you got a guy winning $1 million who played for the first time signs up for DraftKings, puts an entry in, wins $1 million. And he beats a guy. The guy who finished second is really well known. Drew said he's like one of the first guys to even play daily fantasy. A Roto Grinders tie in there. On one hand, you have the anyone could do this, sign up and play, put your $20 in, you could be a millionaire. On the other hand, you've got these guys have been grinding, they've been at it. They're the people who give advice. They're going to pump the money back into the system.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing ever is for a first-time player to win. I think one of the negatives right now in the daily fantasy sports industry is that people look at guys that play multiple entries, sometimes in the hundreds in some of these tournaments, and people are turned off by it. So the more stories that get out there about these one-time, first-time players with one entry winning is the greatest thing for the fantasy sports industry. And FanDuel, DraftKings have done a great job. The one negative I have on those two is these stories need to be out there in front of people more and more.
It's our, hey, chair number 3, we'll get a DraftKings dude here, we'll get a FanDuel guy. We're going to bring the industry to you for this coverage. We're treating this kind of like the Republican Democratic National Convention. You can see people walking around behind us. There are going to be breaks during these. There are these awesome panels going on where all these numbers we talk about, you know, the 41 million people play, they all come from behind these doors. We're going to have all those numbers and all the people in the industry to talk about it and tell you what they mean as we go along here on the coverage. Marathon coverage of the Fantasy Sports Trade Association.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. 41 million users there.
That's gone. Throw that number away, man.
It's going to go, and we got a Peter Shanky. We talked to him a little bit, and you're going to see that coming up. He didn't tell us the number, but he was hinting that it's going to be strong, and I think it's going to be strong. I mean, there are so many guys.
Over under on 55 million.
I'm going to give you 61 million.
Yeah.
61 million. The biggest boom to the fantasy sports industry was when daily fantasy sports came in and the poker industry folded in the United States. So them closing down the poker industry had these really, really intelligent mathematical geniuses out there looking for a place to take their vice and put it into play.
Yeah.
They came over to fantasy sports.
Bring your vices to us.
You know what? I'll tell you right now. And I had the privilege of interviewing a guy named Beep Jeep, who won 5 FanDuel Live qualifying events. So he's going to have 5 shots at $4 million in prizes. He never watched baseball. Some people are turned off by that. But basically what he did, he said he spent 10,000 hours researching, coming out all the statistical information, learning about the game of baseball, putting it into a spreadsheet, and now I got people out here that think that's terrible because I watch baseball and now I can't win, and I give them a Kleenex.
You can still enjoy watching baseball. You don't have to win money while you're watching baseball.
Do you give them a Kleenex? Do you feel bad?
Yeah, here you go. I'm so sorry, right? And by the way, Beep Jeep, one of those guys in the industry who has this knowledge and doesn't want to share it because he wants to keep it. That's the new interesting twist. You don't want to share all this knowledge. You know, not you, but you know, some of these.
Right. We do it on radio, TV, and we love doing it, and we play, but we love to give the information that's first and foremost. We've been doing this a long time, so we do that. Beep Jeep, he's got to pay his electric bill. He's got to pay, you know, he's probably got a servant and things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got a butler. We're going to take a quick break here. We're live on the floor at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Summer Conference in New York City. It's the Fantasy Sports Network continued coverage coming your way after this.